So now let's go ahead and practice this. Okay, now it's all about notation. Okay, it's all about notation. So first, if you look at these 4 questions, can I ask you to do the following for this one, for this one, and for this one? Okay, and that is, we'll give you an example. After you see this, can you go ahead and kind of interpret the notation properly to make something like this? Okay, so I'm going to give you 20 seconds. Okay, take care of number 3 and number 4. Okay, take care of those 2. Okay, so for number 3, it should look like f of 1 times g of 1. For the 4th one, it should be f of 5 over g of 5. Easy, right? Easy. So now if you have these notations, then your job, it's a lot more easier now. All you need to do is to look at these 2 graphs, and they do look similar. But make sure you know how to interpret these 2 graphs. So we have f of 4 and g of 4. So we say, all right, what's f of 4? It's 1, 2, 3, 4. So f of 4, f is a thinner line. F of 4 is 0. What's g of 4? G is the thick line. It's equal to 1. So 0 plus 1, it's 1. Okay. All right. So I'm going to let you all to do these 3 questions. I'll give you 1.5 minutes. Okay. Go ahead. Try it. So the graph doesn't have f of 5 and g of 5. So I think we have to change something here. So we're going to change this to 2. All right. So what's f of 3? F of 3, 1, 2, 3. F of 3 is 1. F of 2 is a 3. So the answer is -2. Do you all get -2? Yes. Easy? Easy, right? F of 1 times g of 1. So f of 1 is a 2. And then g of 1 is a 1. So therefore, you have a 2. Easy. Okay. F of 2 is a 3. F of g of 2, it's a 5. So 3 over 5. That's the answer. Yeah. Okay. So so it's very easy, right? It's very easy. Now, I want you to know that pre-cal, is it hard? I mean, I won't say it's hard, but it does require your full attention. But we didn't practice a lot last year in Algebra 2. But we're going to be very serious here because it's very fundamental. Okay. Now, here's one more thing, though. We have a term. I'm going to write it here. It's called a relative maximum. Now, let me go ahead and use a relative maximum first. So I'm going to ask you this. Can you see that there's a relative maximum for the thick line, G? Can you see there's a relative maximum? I didn't explain what relative maximum is, but let's just listen to the language. Can you see that there's a relative maximum for G? If you say yes, can you tell me what the X value is when G has a relative maximum? What's the X value? X is 2, and the function value is 5. Okay, so we say, hey, G of 2 is equal to 5, and okay, well, that's where you see the relative maximum. Okay, that's a relative maximum right there. That's a very good observation. Okay, so right here, there's a relative maximum. Okay, and the next one is, hey, yes.
The minimum?
Yes, I'm going to ask the next question. Yes, this is my next question. Can you see the relative minimum? In this case, I'm going to ask, can you see the relative minimum for f function, the thin line? Can you see a relative minimum? Okay, so for f function, what x value does the relative minimum occur? For it's this is not considered as a relative minimum. 3 would not be a relative minimum. I will talk about what 4 is in a moment. It's something. When x is 0, this part right here. Okay, so f of 0, it's equal to 1. So now, can you see what we mean by a relative maximum and minimum? Okay, think about how relative. Okay, so it has to go up and down. That's a relative maximum. Relative minimum would be something that goes down and then it goes up again. Okay, that's a relative minimum. Now, I think that's a very good point. That what is this then? For f, what is this? It looks like a very low point, right? What do we call this? It is some sort of minimum, but we don't call it relative. We call it absolute. Okay. Okay. So we use the word absolute minimum or maximum to label or indicate the highest point or the lowest point on the entire graph. Okay. So for function f, this is the lowest point, and we say, hey, that is the absolute minimum right there. Okay, that's the absolute minimum right there. So so for g function, okay, for g function, we'll say, hey, this is a relative max, and guess what? This is also the absolute max. Okay, this is also the absolute maximum as well for g. Yes.
Why is that the relative minimum?
Which one?
F of 0 is 1.
It's relative because it goes down and it goes up again. So relatively, that's a low point. Okay.
Oh, you're only talking about the f.
Yeah, so it's just the f. Okay.
But before it's lower.
That's why we call it absolute minimum. For something to be a relative minimum, it has to go down and then it has to go up. Like I would tell you that my third year of teaching is my relative minimum. It's not my absolute, but it's relative. It was a low point in my life.
Doesn't tell me it's relative to what?
Well, it's relative to the surrounding values. Okay, and this is actually a concept that you will learn again in calculus, but with fancier notations. Okay, but this is the idea: relative max and relative min. It goes up, it goes down. Okay, goes up, it goes down. That's a relative max. It goes down first, and then it goes up again. That's a relative minimum. Okay.